Trump's son-in-law. So I want to bring in Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger. He's also an Iraq war veteran. He is a congressman from Illinois. Welcome, sir.
Hey, thanks.
So, did you hear any of that?
I did, yeah. It was interesting.
What'd you think?
So, you know, look, I'm as a free, fair trader myself, a little disappointed in the TPP, you know,
because you voted in favor of TPP, right?
Yeah, and I'm supportive of it. But look, you know, I knew this was dead in the water when you had both candidates that basically were campaigning against it. My hope is that, you know, the big kind of trans-Pacific partnership can be replaced by maybe some bilateral trade negotiations, which are important, and showing that we're protecting American manufacturing. The rest of, you know, what President Trump basically said, you know, as a Republican, you kind of get excited to hear. He says it in a very different way than what you're used to, but talking about the idea of reducing regulations, making it easier for business to create jobs, for factories to be built. That's pretty exciting. So let's see what that looks like in action, and we'll go from there.
So let's talk about some of Mr. Trump's ideas, because he looked at the CEOs of those companies. He said, look, we're going to cut regulations by 75%. Right. If you build new factories in the United States, we're going to give you massive tax breaks. So, of course, businesses would be happy. Who wouldn't?
Right. Well, I mean, again, the devil's going to be in the details there. The 75% number, that's probably kind of, you know, Trump just making a large number. I don't know if it's actually 75%, but the idea, too, is we want to have protection of our environment. We want to have protection of workers. That's all extremely important. But a lot of the cases, and I've talked to, you know, folks in my district that own businesses that say, sometimes it's so burdensome that we can go through all the iterations of what we need to do, but it'll still be 2 years till something gets approved. And so that kind of thing, I think fixing that and just reinvigorating that free market and having just new blood, no matter which party, I think, can be pretty good.
Here's the thing. If you give massive tax breaks to companies, right, somebody's got to pick up the slack. And that's going to be the U.S. taxpayer. And that's probably going to be within the upper income level taxpayer. So Mr. Trump says he wants to cut taxes for everyone. How would that be possible if you're going to give humongous tax breaks to these businesses to build new factories or to continue doing business within the United States? Somebody's going to have to pick up the slack.
Yeah, well, we're talking about getting rid of a lot of deductions and lowering overall rates. And how that looks, again, in the final numbers, that's where Republicans, Democrats, the President, and Congress are going to be in negotiations. But for instance, you know, companies that make money overseas, let's say they make a product in Germany, they pay the German corporate taxes on it. Well, we're the only country where then if they want to bring their profits back and reinvest it in the United States, on top of that, they have to pay American corporate taxes. So what happens is they don't bring that money back at all. They reinvest it back in that country. If we go to how every other country does it, which says you can bring your profits back at a very reduced rate, we actually make money on that because they're bringing money they never would have back, and we're increasing the amount of capital back in the United States. Republicans and Democrats both agree that that's something that needs to be done. That'll be a tax break for these corporations and small businesses, but it also will lead to more money to the American taxpayer.
Okay, the other thing that Mr. Trump mentioned was this border tax, this idea if you build your products, you know, over the Mexican border, we're going to put a big fat tariff on it, and it's going to cost you money. Would Congress support something like that?
That's hard to tell. I don't know what the numbers are in Congress. I'm a little nervous about that idea because, again, that's when you start to mess with the idea of being able to have free flow of goods and trade. The United States wins when we actually enter into free trade negotiations with other countries. You see a trade surplus for the United States in almost every case. Unfortunately, that message isn't out there. So I'm nervous about that idea. I want to look at the details. We're going to give the president a little room to kind of breathe and show his vision here. In essence, they call it the first 100 days, the honeymoon period. But that doesn't mean that Congress is going to roll over. We'll continue to represent our people, our constituents, the best we can.
Okay, so wait a minute. You think Mr. Trump does have a honeymoon period? Because
I don't know.
Some people said the honeymoon's already over.
It doesn't feel like it right now. But, you know, look, that'll be up to the Democrats and some Republicans in the media to see if we allow him to articulate his vision and then go from there. But it doesn't really feel very honeymoony right now, that's for sure.
No, and it's because of phrases thrown around, you know, like alternate facts and, you know, his complaints about crowd size. And if he focused on stuff like this, right, yeah, without, like, you know, muddying the waters with that kind of stuff, wouldn't it be better?
I think so. And if you look at, so I think this, what you just showed, is a very kind of impressive side of Trump. I think when he was signing the executive orders right after the inauguration, and you could kind of see him getting along with, you know, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, and kind of this back and forth, that was a high moment. The CIA speech I didn't understand, and the Sean Spicer briefing I didn't quite understand at all. So I think, hopefully folks within his team, from what I understand...
Tell us why you didn't quite understand Mr. Trump's speech before the CIA and Sean Spicer's performance in his very first press briefing.
Because it's taking the message you want as a new president, and it's derailing it, right? You're in front of the CIA, this hallowed ground where it's honoring people that have died on behalf of their country, and you barely mention it. I was disappointed in that. Sean Spicer comes out and argues about crowd size. Look, the fact is you had a huge amount of people that were there and watching it on TV, even if they couldn't make the trip from Tennessee or Illinois. But to get into the battle of, no, you're not right about crowd size, has nothing to do with the legacy of President Trump or the things he's going to do. So my hope is, and from what I understand, Trump likes to be pushed back against. He likes kind of people in his inner circle to fight back. He may need a little more of that when, his reaction may be, I'm going to go give a speech at the CIA wall about crowd size. He needs somebody to push back and say, Mr. President, I don't think you should do that. And maybe we can get kind of back on track here. But I think there's a lot of good potential.
Do you think that's what Sean Spicer should have done? Because clearly somebody...
Yeah, I do. But, I don't understand where he came from on that. I don't know if he had marching orders, if he came out in emotion. I'm sure he knew the boss was watching. But I wish he'd push back. And he very well may end up kind of getting his sea legs under him as he and the president get to know each other better. Let's see how this week transpires. Obviously, it was a rough start, but let's see how this week transpires. I'm pretty excited about the stuff we have to do, but I think from a messaging perspective, they're going to have to get themselves way more disciplined.
Okay, so just a final question to you. Republicans have control of both houses of Congress. Mr. Trump is banking on that. If he continues down this road of muddying the waters, of getting into fights perhaps that he should not, is there a danger he may lose support even though both houses of Congress are controlled by Republicans?
I think there's a big danger because, it's one thing to push back against perceived media bias. I think, as Republicans, we like to see that. It's another thing to come out and say, though, that a fact is only a fact if it fits within your worldview. And this is what I've been concerned with on both sides of the aisle, frankly, is that people only read stories and they only accept facts if it comports with what their preconceived confirmation bias is of the world. We need to get back to where we can hear the other side of the argument. We can say that sometimes a fact may not be exactly what we want to hear. And so I think in the long run, again, that campaign way of doing things could get old if in fact this becomes what the new president's team is. So I would definitely discourage them from ever using the term alternative facts again. That's my opinion.
We'll see what happens. Congressman Adam Kinzinger, thanks so much for being with me.